Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Simon Carver, broadcasting to you once again from a cold, damp, and completely blacked out London. It is Tuesday, June 10th, 1941. If you step outside our temporary shortwave transmitter room tonight, you can hear the faint, distant hum of the civil defense wardens patrolling the foggy streets. Just 9 days ago, on June 1st, the government instituted clothes rationing across the United Kingdom, and the Manchester Blitz left 70 dead and 86 injured. But we are keeping our spirits high, sending our signals across the cold Atlantic to find some light. Joining me from our warm, fully illuminated New York studio on KDCR is my pragmatic partner, George Wilson. George, how are the shores of New York Harbor looking tonight?
Well, Simon, New York is bright and loud, though we are keeping a close eye on the shortwave reports coming from your side of the water. Over here, we are trying to keep our focus on the ball game. The Dodgers are fighting for the pennant. The jazz clubs on 52nd Street are packed, and the smell of cigar smoke is heavy in the air. But hearing about Manchester, it really makes you think about how we measure time. An hour over there, huddled in a shelter during an air raid, must feel like a lifetime. Over here, an hour at a ball game goes by in a flash.
The subjective weight of 60 minutes. That is exactly the theme of our broadcast tonight, George. An hour can be an eternity, or it can slip through your fingers like sand. And that brings us directly to our subject, the ticking clock of all-American publications. Tonight, we are opening up the files on Rex Tyler, the brilliant chemist who gains the strength of, as the text says, chained lightning for exactly 1 hour from a miraculous chemical pill of his own invention. We are talking, of course, about the Hourman.
Hourman. Now he is a character who lives and dies by the clock. No alien heritage, no magic rings. Just a man, a chemistry lab, and a little pill called Miraclo. If he does not finish the job in 60 minutes, he is just another guy in a bright suit. It is a brilliant, stressful premise for a mystery man, Simon. It gives every single panel an automatic deadline.
It really does. And to bring this time-sensitive hero to life in the pages of adventure comics, it took the exceptional minds of writer Gardner and artist Bernard Baily. Our technical producer, the mysterious Mr. Moore, who claims to be transmitting to us from some electronic lounge in the 21st century, tells us this will be a particularly interesting run of comics to cover tonight. Adventure Comics numbers 48 through 57. All-Star Comics numbers 1 and 2, and the Grand New York World's Fair Comics 1940.
That is a heavy stack of dimes, Simon, and a lot of Miraclo pills to swallow. Let us roll up our sleeves and dive straight into where it all began. March 1940. Adventure Comics number 48.
Let us open up Adventure Comics number 48, cover dated March 1940. The splash page introduces us to Rex Tyler, a young chemist at the Bannerman Laboratories. The caption tells us he has discovered Miraclo, a powerful chemical that transforms him from a mild scientist into the underworld's most formidable foe. But we start with a very human piece of business. Rex has placed an anonymous ad in a metropolitan daily paper that reads, "To the oppressed. Young man anxious to help the oppressed. Offers services free to all who need him. Apply, Box 21, Post Office."
An anonymous classified ad. That is some real low-rent detective work. But it pays off. He gets a letter from a Mrs. J. Kennedy. She writes that her husband lost his job, grew desperate, and has fallen in with a dangerous gang of thieves. They are planning a massive robbery at the upcoming Beaux-Arts ball that very night.
Exactly. And Rex realizes he has to act fast. In his laboratory, we see him mixing a vial of the precious fluid that will make him invincible. He pours it into a small pill mold. He says, "The Grand March is at 11. I'll take this 1 minute before 11. He also fills a special ring on his finger with a powerful tear gas concentrate.
A tear gas ring. Now that is a gadget I can get behind. Simple, mechanical, and highly effective. But that countdown panel. 1 minute to 11. Miraclo, do your stuff. That is where the tension starts. He swallows the pill, slips into his costume, and sneaks into the ball just as the clock strikes 11 and the lights are mysteriously cut.
The lights go out, and in the blackness, we hear the screams. My pearls! They're gone! The thieves have snatched the famous Van Shelton pearls. But with the extra normal sight granted by the Miraclo, the Hourman can see perfectly in the dark. He spots the thieves escaping in a red sedan.
And he chases them on foot. Think about that. A car speeding down the street, and this fella in a hood is keeping pace, leaping into the air, and landing right on the roof of the sedan. But then, a screaming police car coming from the other direction hits the getaway car, throwing Hourman clear off the roof.
He gets knocked flying, but he recovers instantly, shouting, "Wow, that had almost as much kick as Miraclo." He tracks the gangsters to their brownstone hideout on 10th Street. We look at the clock on the wall inside the hideout. It is 11:40 p.m. He only has 20 minutes left.
20 minutes to bust up a gang of armed robbers. Hourman crashes through the door, releases his tear gas from his ring, and completely blinds the thugs. He grabs Kennedy, the desperate husband, and carries him up to the roof. Now, here is where George's gray worldview comes in. Hourman literally holds Kennedy over the edge of the building, threatening to drop him 30 floors to the pavement unless he promises to go straight.
It is a brutal, terrifying lesson. Kennedy is screaming, "I'll go home, only don't throw me off." Hourman drops him safely back on the roof, but then we see a dramatic panel. "I'm growing weak, this stuff is wearing off." The clock strikes 12, the 60 minutes are up, and Rex Tyler is instantly turned back into his meek, tired civilian self.
And the next morning, his boss at Bannermain Laboratories is yelling at him for being a timid soul who does nothing but dawdle over test tubes. It is a beautiful contrast, Simon. But we have to talk about the confusion in this early run regarding his name. In the splash, he is introduced as Tick-Tock Tyler, the Hourman. Some of the characters literally ask him, "Tyler? Say, you don't happen to be Tick-Tock Tyler, the Hourman?" It is like his secret identity is barely a secret, or they are mixing up his superhero name with his actual civilian surname.
It is incredibly messy, George. In these early issues, Gardner Fox is clearly playing with the nomenclature. Sometimes he is Rex Tyler, sometimes the criminals refer to the mystery man himself as Tick-Tock Tyler, and his costume has this striking Gothic look, a full yellow cowl that drapes over his shoulders like a medieval executioner's hood, paired with a black long-sleeve shirt, yellow trunks, and a miniature hourglass hanging around his neck. It is dark, theatrical, and completely different from the sleek, athletic outfits we are starting to see elsewhere.
Well, that yellow cowl certainly stands out on the newsstand. But let us move on to Adventure Comics number 49, where we get a story about a crooked horse racing syndicate. A gangster named Nick Bates wants to buy into a dark horse named Blue Bell, owned by James Karen. When Karen refuses to sell, Bates's thugs beat him within an inch of his life.
They leave him for dead on a Long Island road, George. Rex Tyler hears the news over the radio in his lab, takes a Miraclo pill, and races to the Manhattan Derby. He confronts Bates's thugs at the track, but one of them sneaks up behind him and knocks him cold with a lead pipe. Here we see the limits of his power. Miraclo makes him strong, but he can still be caught off guard by a simple, blunt instrument.
A lead pipe to the back of the head. That will put anyone down, chemist or not. But he recovers, saves Bluebell from being shot during the race by a gangster posing as a track photographer, and delivers the syndicate to the police just as his hour runs out. Then, in issues 50 and 51, we get a truly bizarre two-part saga involving Silo's Wax Museum.
The Wax Museum! A mad scientist named Dr. Morte is using an artificial heart and a chemical called plastic skin to literally bring statues of dead historical criminals back to life. He revives Alvin Cardis and Two Gun Carmody, two notorious killers who died in a gun duel with G-Men, and sends them out to rob banks and do his bidding.
Resurrecting dead gangsters to rob banks. That is some proper pulp fiction weirdness. Hourman tracks Morte to his secret lab, but because his Miraclo wears off, he is captured. Dr. Morte actually forces Hourman to assist him in his experiments, but Rex secretly concocts a fresh batch of Miraclo using the lab's chemicals, swallows it, and smashes the revival machinery, melting the animated wax gangsters back into puddles of grease.
It is a fantastic, macabre visual by Bernard Baily. The gangsters literally melt away like candles. But speaking of recurring villains, let us look at Adventure Comics number 52. This issue features the second appearance of Dr. Sneg, a brilliant but twisted hypnotist who uses a double named Wallace to frame the Hourman for bank robberies.
Sneg. Now, he is an interesting case. He is one of the very few villains in this entire early era to actually make a return appearance. Most of these doctors, Dr. Morte, Dr. Togg, Dr. Slight, they show up for one story and are never heard from again. It is surprising, because a recurring rogue like Dr. Sneg really helps build a hero's world. If you do not have a regular antagonist, you are just fighting the flavor of the month.
That is a great point, George. And it makes us think about how Hourman's relationship with time compares to someone like the Flash, whom we discussed in our last episode. The Flash's relationship with time is fluid, almost infinite. He can vibrate through walls, run backward through seconds, and outrun light itself. But Hourman's relationship with time is mechanical, strict, and completely unyielding. He is a prisoner of the clock. Every second he spends searching a room or talking to a witness is a second of super strength he can never get back.
It is a tax on his heroism, Simon. Every time he takes that pill, the sand starts running. He cannot afford to be elegant. He has to be direct, brutal, and fast.
And that brings us to the summer of 1940. In All-Star Comics number 1, Hourman joins several other mystery men to swap stories. And then in the New York World's Fair Comics 1940, we get a delightful story where Rex Tyler is representing Bannerman Laboratories at the Flushing Meadows Fairgrounds. He ends up saving a little girl named Rose and her father, Gerald Rochester, from a gang of tire thieves who are trying to sabotage a fox hunt on their country estate.
A fox hunt? That is some high society business for a kid from New York. But the big shift happens in Adventure Comics number 53, cover dated August 1940. This is the first appearance of Jimmy Minuteman Martin and the creation of the Minutemen of America.
Yes, the story deals with the Tariff Factory, a terrible sweatshop where children are being overworked and undernourished. One of the boys, Billy Martin, actually collapses and dies of heart failure at his machine. His brother, Jimmy Martin, vows to expose the factory owner, Tariff, but Tariff's thugs kidnap Jimmy to keep him quiet.
Child labor in a New York factory. That is a dirty, real-world crime. Hourman rescues Jimmy, smashes Tariff's operation, and forces a local politician to sign over the business to a reformer. But after the battle, Jimmy reveals he is an amateur radio ham. He suggests that he could organize a club of boys all over the country, using shortwave radio sets to act as Hourman scouts.
The Minutemen of America! It is a brilliant, highly practical concept for a hero whose power is time-sensitive. If Hourman only has 60 minutes of strength, he cannot spend 40 of those minutes riding the subway looking for the crime. He needs scouts to find the trouble, verify the details, and then call him in via shortwave radio so he can drop in, take his pill, and clean house in a matter of minutes.
It is a great mechanic, Simon. In Adventure Comics number 54, we see it in action. A wealthy banker's son, Rodney Morvan, is kidnapped by a ransom gang. Rodney's father wants to pay the ransom, but Rodney's mother refuses, claiming the Minutemen perform real service. Jimmy Martin uses his portable radio to coordinate with other boys, tracking the kidnapper's car by looking for unique, crescent-shaped tire treads.
Crescent tire treads! That is some classic schoolboy detective work. But we have to contrast Jimmy Martin with Robin, the boy wonder, who debuted in Detective Comics number 38 just a few months earlier. Robin became an absolute sensation because he was a partner who shared the panels, shared the danger, and had a deep emotional surrogate father relationship with Batman. But Jimmy Martin is, well, he is more of a dispatcher. He stays at the radio, or he coordinates other kids from a distance.
And that is why Robin works better, Simon. Robin is in the room. He is swinging from the rafters. Minuteman Martin is a smart kid, But these 6-page anthology stories and adventure comics are just too short to build a real, emotional partnership. Robin has the luxury of 12 or 15 pages to let the relationship breathe. Jimmy Martin is a plot device to save Hourman's 60 minutes. It is clever, but it lacks the heart.
It really does. Let us look at the final run of our stack. In All-Star Comics #2, we see Hourman teaming up with the other mystery men to stop a ring of international saboteurs. Then, in Adventure Comics #55, we get a story about a Youth Government Week in the city of Cosmos, where Jimmy Martin is appointed police commissioner, only to stumble upon a massive bank robbery plot involving a shipment of sleeping gas.
Sleeping gas at the Apex Theater. Hourman has to chase the crook's car, gets knocked out by a smoke gas device attached to their exhaust pipe, but the Minutemen drop a message from the window of the getaway car to guide him to the next robbery at the Lyceum Theater. It is a fantastic, high-speed chase. But my favorite has to be issue 56, with Dr. Slight and Castle Doom.
Castle Doom! Dr. Slight has built this massive medieval castle on Lonely Island. He is using a secret chemical to bring plaster statues of circus performers and animals to life, including a giant strongman named Sandow and a literal flying Pegasus. The Pegasus is actually used to drop bombs on a local munitions plant.
A flying Pegasus dropping bombs. That is pure Golden Age fever dream territory, Simon. Hourman gets trapped in a steel coffin by Dr. Slight, but he uses his tear gas ring to melt the lock, smashes the machinery, and defeats Sandow with a right cross to the midriff. But then, we hit Adventure Comics #57, and we meet Dr. Tog.
Dr. Tog! This is one of the most memorable, bizarre stories of the entire run. Tog is a mad geneticist operating out of a secluded lab on Wide Island. He is creating Gombizi, monstrous half-man, half-bird hybrid beasts that he is trained to fly around and rob banks, blinding the guards with chemical gas.
Half-man, half-bird monsters robbing banks. That is some heavy, gothic horror. And we have to talk about the artist, Bernard Baily. Baily brings this incredible, thick, dark line to the page. His work on the Spectre is legendary for its atmosphere of dread and menace, and you can see that exact same heavy, shadow-draped ink style in these Hourman pages. The Gombizi monsters look genuinely creepy, flapping their wings in the dark.
They really do. Baily and Gardner Fox created a character who is constantly racing against his own human limitations, George. And as we look ahead to our next standard broadcast, we will be diving into the grand, winged debut of Hawkman in Flash Comics numbers 1 through 13 and All-Star Comics numbers 1 and 2.
Hawkman. Now there is a hero with some real, ancient pedigree. I cannot wait to sink my teeth into those wings.
Before we sign off, friends, our technical producer, that mysterious Mr. Moore, insists we remind you to send your letters, your questions, or your favorite panels to our shortwave mailbag at distinguishedcomicsradio@gmail.com.
That is distinguishedcomicsradio@gmail.com. Write in, folks. Tell us if you think Miraclo is a good idea, or if Rex Tyler should just stick to standard calisthenics.
Keep your dials tuned. Keep your courage high in these uneasy times, and from a resolute, blacked-out London, this is Simon Carver saying goodnight.
And from New York, where the studio lamps are warm and the Dodgers are still in first place, this is George Wilson. Good night, folks, and keep your eyes on the clock.